This is Coda Radio, episode 16, for September 24th, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Buenos dias, Senor Fisher.
Good afternoon to you, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. I'm curious, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to do a quick overview of the iOS 6 stuff. I don't think there's a lot to talk about just yet.
Okay.
I'm going to do quick feedback as usual, but also we're talking about burnout in both the IT, but more importantly, the developer industry.
Oh, burnout. Great topic, yeah.
I've been feeling the burn, so to speak.
Okay. All right. I might have noticed that, but I'll save my comments for later. So should we start with our batch of feedback for this week?
Do it.
All right. So who's our first email from?
I'm going to butcher your name, and I deeply apologize. Tushar?
I believe that's Tasha Yar.
Tasha Yar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry. Writes in with some issues about Ubuntu.
Oh, okay.
So he wrote in a very long email, but I'm going to summarize it for time. He tried Ubuntu with Unity in 12.04, the stock implementation.
All right.
Had a lot of stability issues and a lot of odd graphical bugs.
Really?
So he switched to CentOS and I think GNOME 2.8.6, but I could be wrong on the exact point.
All right.
Okay, I'm wondering if your issues aren't graphic driver related or something in Comp is.
Now, this probably came up because, last week we talked about how Ubuntu has some potential to actually be a decent development station. And, you do have to wonder, though, some of these graphical environments like Unity and GNOME 3 require a bunch of GPU overhead that you don't really need just to develop. And that's probably exactly what he's running into, right?
Right, because, I think that's the problem. And I heard a rumor, and I'm not sure if this is true, in 12.10, are they getting rid of 2D mode?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they believe that the 3D drivers are at a point that they can do that. I think what that really means is XFCE usage is going to take another step up.
Yeah, that's not very smart. Because I can tell you, when I first install it, until I install proprietary drivers, I'm pushed into 2D mode.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm surprised to hear that. Again, CentOS is a great distro, and if that works for you, honestly, it's about getting your work done. So
yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah, as long as it works for them. And I would say, yeah, it must have been video issues with Unity, because I have run into that a few times where if my graphics card actually is not running so good, and then my driver starts crapping out on me, then my Unity interface starts crapping out on me.
Yeah, it's a little odd that they require GPU acceleration for apparently all of the interface now in 12.10.
Yeah.
Just another reason to stay on the LTS version.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Just go with what works for you.
Yeah, and I would say anybody who's actually using Ubuntu as a dev machine, probably stick with the LTS. Mm-hmm. You'll be better off. All right, so Jay writes in to explain that Coda Radio has gotten him to quit his evil app pirating ways.
No way.
Now, I think we had someone write in this last week as well.
Now, you've done some ranting against privacy. Against piracy.
Yes.
Piracy. But I guess you did kind of get up on your soapbox a couple of times. Look at you. You're changing minds, man.
Changing minds.
Do you know what kind of piracy? Yeah, I guess we're talking software piracy.
We're talking software here, yeah.
Where do you stand on, like, media piracy, like, say, a TV show?
I still won't do it.
Really?
I don't care as much because it doesn't impact me directly. But I tend to purchase things digitally. And I don't pirate things. Spotify is cheap, right? So $8 a month, I get all the music I want. Mm-hmm. But $8 a month, I'm pretty much fine. I don't see a reason to pirate that. Films, I tend to get through iTunes, but when they're on sale.
What do you think, though, about Jay's sentiment where he says he's not going to pay more than $1 for an app, though?
That's a common sentiment. I'm happy that he's willing to pay $1. To be honest, I mean, that's good.
Yeah, I do know people that swear up and down they'll never pay.
Yeah.
it seems like it's getting more and more common. You know, people feel like they spend a lot of money on this phone. They feel like they spend a lot of money on this data plan. And they kind of feel like, you know, all this kind of stuff, because it's quote unquote not real to them. You know, they don't feel like it's worth it.
Right. And, you know, I'm not too interested in discussing media piracy because I understand there's issues in foreign countries. And I have to pay exorbitant prices to get Doctor Who and Torchwood here. Except now that they're on Netflix, that's better. But I understand the import tariffs and things like that can be rough. But since this is a developer show, I'm pleased that one less person is stealing my software.
Okay. All right. Sounds like you're trying to avoid the topic of the fact that, to me, I think you're facing a sliding and sliding decline that more and more people are not willing to pay for software. And I think that's a big problem that you can't
I think
get away
we've
from.
covered that a lot. I mean, we've talked about it, right? That's why when in TechSnap, Alan was saying when you do in-app purchases, the developers get all your data. I quickly jumped down his throat in IRC.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe the model's changing. Yeah, you might be right. All right. Well, okay.
Yeah.
I won't push it.
So, yeah, we've talked about it before, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again.
Yeah.
Possibly next week.
Oh. All right.
So Matt wrote in to kind of help me out. I was complaining about when you install a new version of Ubuntu, all those legacy artifacts being stuck in Grub.
Which I think it only does two now in there.
Right. So he even has a tool where you can customize it to show whatever you want. Or in my case, as little as you want.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. So I just thought I'd share that.
Grub Customizer, a graphical Grub 2 settings manager. Link in the show notes. Move and rename menu entries. Very nice. Edit the contents of menu entries or create new ones. Supports Grub 2 and Berg. Also can reload the bootloader into MBR, which is actually kind of nice if you screw something up. That's great right there. Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool. All right, so this week's feedback is truncated a bit because most of the feedback I got is about the main topic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're going to move right on to this week's Dev Hoopla.
All right, what is it?
So Jeremy Kahn wrote an article called Developers versus Engineers versus Scientists.
Okay.
Other than being incredible link bait,
exactly,
getting to the top of Hacker News, he makes a good point.
Okay.
So he's saying that there's three types of programmers. Developers who, and I have to admit, he gives kind of a very negative view of them, get things done but don't care about, you know, proper implementation and don't know a lot about math. Engineers who care a lot about implementation but don't really get things done in a timely fashion. And scientists who do all the algorithms and push the state of the art. So he seems to be coming from a very particular point of view and seems to kind of not like 2 out of 3 of those. So what I would say, this gets back into a topic we've touched on a lot. Do you really need to know high-level math to do software engineering or software development? I'd say no, because the vast majority of employers would rather a developer than an engineer. For the simple reason that if it works and is done on time and on budget, no manager ever got fired for that.
Very true.
Managers have gotten fired for perfect implementations that were 6 months late.
Unfortunately true.
Yes. So even though this guy's article is a little derogatory, I would say he only serves to... I mean, he has a point, right? There are definitely 3 different ways to look at software development. And you should probably be a mix of all 3. But I would say, especially of the engineer, the portrait he paints as a good portrait, you know, it's not good if you're working for somebody and you have a deadline.
So I think our local friendly Alan Jude would fit the character of engineer. You know, he's not going to take a solution that just works. He wants to make sure they have the right full understanding of the picture. He focuses on reusable solutions that scale, elegant architectures, right? And then you would you consider yourself in the developer category, right?
I think his argument's bad.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's your one of all. I think you're a mixture of 3.
See, that's what I was going to try to pin you down and argue that.
Right. I would say Alan's probably closer to engineer, but Alan's probably much closer to being on the ops side than actually the development side.
Right.
So I would say me and Alan are the furthest apart of software developers that you could get. Because I only come in when things have already gone to hell. So my mission is usually very clear. Get this out the door by whatever means necessary.
Yeah.
Because we're already 2 months over our deadline. Alan is thinking long term. So it's a little different. And there are places where each approach is better. Now, I would say if Jupyter Broadcasting was down, you might prefer someone who would get it done quickly and get it back up. And then you can fine tune that solution later.
And that's where, it really proves the point that no one really fits in any one particular category.
I don't think anybody fits into one. I would say maybe the scientist is the one where pure academics would be. But because if Alan's a pure engineer, by this guy's portrait, Alan would never have actually launched Scale Engine.
Right.
Period. Like, I'm sure if we talked to him, he did make some compromises. He had to.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way he did perfect implementations of everything.
People generally make compromises every single day.
Yeah, it's just not possible because it's really good to argue to do everything the right way and to have the best patterns and to, you want the perfect implementation, but you're still going to get fired if you're a week late or a month late.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's an honest truth to that old saying that the real artist ship or something like that.
Right.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day unless you actually get your product out the door. And it's like, that's my approach with these shows too. It's like, I honestly, every single episode we make, I could spend hours and hours tweaking something or changing something that really bugs me. But at a certain point, the most important feature is the fact that it actually ships out the door.
Well, and certainly, there is an argument to be made that people on the far too aggressive and reckless side are going to destroy your project.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is I think you need a balance of the first two.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's one thing to make a compromise that is technical debt that you're going to have to pay for later, as long as you understand the compromise you're making. And if you're a contractor or employee, that your manager or your client understands the compromise. It's another thing to just do things by Googling and copying and pasting from Stack Overflow and not understand what you're doing. That's just bad. Right? That's just being not good. And I'm not saying that Alan's not perfect. I'm sure he's the way and the light. The chat room's getting very upset.
Uh-oh.
I'm just saying he runs a business. He must have made a compromise somewhere. But I would recommend anybody who's really interested in programming to read this article, because I have to be honest, when I read the, I've done the developer thing that Jeremy Kahn criticizes, and I've done the engineer thing that he criticizes. So it's just good to think twice.
It's interesting, just to kind of tease the burnout topic.
Right.
One of the things, and I know that's not our next topic, but one of the things that always tends to lead to burnout, I find in the sysadmin, sysop space, is when you have to make continuous compromises and continuous concessions to the point where they've sort of built up around you, and now you're kind of being crushed by them.
That would be, that's technical debt, though, right?
Right. That technical debt will lead to burnout, which I'll just tease for our topic that's coming up in a little bit.
Well, I would say the problem in that is actually a communications issue. So when you make a compromise, you need to communicate to the client or the manager that this has to be fixed at some point. You can't just leave this compromise here. The problem is people tend to leave it there.
And then they just burn and burn. And a lot of times that I get brought in, the most common time I get brought in is when that sysadmin has just completely burned out from it and he's gone. And you get in there and you're just like, oh my gosh, what was he doing?
Well, I could tell you, doing iOS before automatic reference scanning, I would get brought in, run the memory leak checker, and see hundreds of memory leaks. And just die a little inside. Yeah. It's
and a lot of times the client doesn't know how bad it is, and you're the one. You're like, and in some cases they even think this guy's been great. Like my current client thinks this guy's just been great. And when I say like, you have a website that has 100,000 pages and they're all statically generated, and to make a change it's going to take a long time. And like, what do you mean? He could update it over the weekend. I'm like, yeah, he killed himself doing that.
Well, I've heard, I was even once in a situation where the guy knew it was a problem, and he told me, and he just said they won't let me fix it.
Yeah, that happens too. Yeah.
They want him on another project, so they're willing to go outside for someone to fix it.
Yeah.
But it's you got to pay, just like your credit cards, kids. You got to pay.
Those debts got to get, and they do acquire interest. They really do.
Yes, they do, especially memory leaks. All right, so speaking of platforms that allow memory leaks, I guess they don't do, but iOS 6 is out.
Yeah.
Joy to the world.
So the NDA's been removed. You've actually had it. You've seen it for a while, probably. We just couldn't talk about it, right?
Couldn't talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny.
iOS 6. My favorite new feature is that when I'm driving somewhere, I end up in a different state.
iOS 6, more of the same?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So this is it's by no means bad. I mean, there are issues in the mapping.
Yeah.
But those have been exaggerated, and
well, and there's also like 100 navigation apps in the App Store, so if you don't like it, just grab one of those. And Motion X is pretty great, and it's free.
To be honest, I use MapQuest, and it's not free, but it's awesome.
And Waze, another great one. Waze, really good.
But so there's a few interesting things they did in iOS 6. A lot of quality of life stuff. You can now do a built-in grid view without having to use an open source project. They've built in pull to refresh. For the love of God, thank you. It's one of those weird things that I've had to do over and over again, and I never seem to be able to easily do.
And the genesis of that's kind of interesting, right? Twitter created that, and then they said, you know what, we're going to let people use it.
They patented it, and then they said anybody could use it.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. And so Apple's implementation is a little different than that one, right? Apple's is you just pull it down. You don't have to quite. It's not the quite same like pull and hold.
It's very close. Yeah. They've taken a different take on it graphically. They have a little
gooey thing.
Yeah, it looks like a gel thing that snaps back. They ripped out Google Maps, but from a development perspective, that doesn't really matter. There's also a Google SDK you could download.
I actually think it's good for developers because they're introducing app integration with the map, so you can fill in like the transit people can now fill in the transit hole with the transit app from the App Store. So I think it opens. I think this misstep with the maps is huge for app developers.
Well, that's even what Apple said, especially for the transit and also the pedestrian maps to find the safest walking path. I don't know. That sounds like a tremendous undertaking.
Yeah, that is a hard thing for smaller developers. But
it would have to be someone bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I know there's a few issues people are mentioning. What about the allegation that they stole the clock? It doesn't affect developers, so I'm not going to go into it.
Yeah.
But which is interesting, with the exception of Facebook and that SDK, which I think I'm going to talk about another day. This is really, evolution rather than revolution. This is not new. This is just refinement, which is boring, but actually good, right? So all of the apps I have in the wild now don't need to be changed, with the exception of longer UIs for the phone.
And I think it's fun to bash on Apple, but I think we don't appreciate the fact that if you wrote an app, and I have apps that I bought with the iPhone 1 that run on my iPad 3.
Right.
And that, or no, I'm sorry, I never had the iPad 1. Whatever the first time they had 3G, whatever the 3G, iPhone 3G. And that to me is an incredible compatibility when you consider how nascent this platform was when they launched, right? And the fact that that's still capable on a completely different hardware form factor and everything else has been changed on 3 or 4 different OS releases, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a double-edged sword. The risk is that they stagnate.
Right. Do you think they are? A little bit?
I think if they do, I don't know that Android's going to be the one to benefit. I feel like iOS and Android are too similar. And I don't mean in technical ways, because they're very different. I mean, for the person in the Verizon store or in the AT&T store, they look too similar. Especially some of the UX overhauls in iOS 6, kind of Android-esque. A little more blocky, a little more square. Take a look at the new iTunes app. On the phone, I mean, not the desktop. I'm wondering if it's... I really think a third platform is going to come in. But we don't need to get on that again.
Okay. So you had mentioned on the pre-show, I don't know if you want to bring this up in the main show, but on the live stream, which by the way, folks, we stream Coder Radio live 9 a.m. Pacific at jblive.tv, which is noon Eastern. And we encourage you to join us because we are constantly reading the chat room. And we were kind of just kicking around some topics, and you'd mentioned that it kind of seemed like JavaScript was taking a bit of a backseat, and they're doubling down on native with iOS 6.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I've read a few blog posts from web developers where they're saying a number of things with CSS3 and JavaScript
have gone wonky. It's just kind of like murmurs at this point, right?
Yeah, but no one has proof. No one has, or at least I haven't seen it, where they can prove that if you run this code on 5, it works, and it fails on 6.
And I've heard there's some web apps that are kind of like a real software has a blog post up right now talking about some incompatibilities with web apps created with the real software development environment. Just changes in Safari, I think, that cause the incompatibility.
I mean, one thing I will say, there was a lot of talk about them perhaps adopting Ruby because of Mac Ruby and that middleware layer.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name. Ruby Motion. They are never going to adopt Ruby. Objective-C is significantly faster, and probably the biggest change to come from iOS 6 is they've added a lot of quality of life changes for Objective-C developers. For instance, I no longer have to do @property non-atomic retain @synthesize to do a simple field. I can now do @property non-atomic retain, and it generates the rest.
Well, look at that.
I can now do literal constructors of arrays and dictionaries, where before it would be NSArray equals NSArray array with objects, and then it had to be nil terminated. Now it's NSArray equals @bracket objects. So see, that's why code over audio doesn't sound good.
I was fascinated, riveted by that, actually.
Wasn't it just engaging as hell? let's do an NS dictionary real quick. NS dictionary asterisk dictionary equals @ curly braces your value key. That's right.
Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a look at source code. I like that. No, that's good. That's good. I guess your main point that you made is it's evolution over revolution. That seems like a good thing for end users and for developers, but just not very exciting for geeks.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, even on the Macs, it feels like they've had enough of the geek nerd market, right?
Well, we are kind of a whiny bunch that want a lot. Like, we want things to be open. We don't like App Store policies that suck. We don't like Gatekeeper. I mean, we're just a pain in the butt.
I always want new APIs.
Yeah.
I mean,
I want better hardware. I want cheaper hardware.
Yeah. And even Android's doing a lot of the same, I would say. So it's not really an Apple thing. It's the when a platform matures, this is what they do. This is what they have to do. They can't just break everything they've done for 3 years, 5 years, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they could, but it wouldn't be smart.
Right.
Someone in the chat's asking where I think Firefox OS sits in. Probably where it is now.
Ooh.
I would say WebOS had a better chance.
I mean, I know you didn't want to get into it, but you think there's a third platform that's just kind of getting its troops assembled right now.
Yeah, I think it's Windows Phone 8 because it's visually different, and that's what matters to consumers. But also, love them or leave them, but Microsoft knows how to take care of developers. And they have a lot, and we've talked about this, they have a lot of code generation. Their app store is much more transparent if you read the documentation, and they're not as restrictive as Apple.
And they're offering trials, which is a great feature.
Right, and they're giving me the ability to give trials and to do demos. I mean, that's a big deal.
That trials just makes it easier just to get people to review it, to get your app some publicity. I mean, that's what people don't even realize about trials is it's not just for the customers, but it's also to get word of mouth.
And I still think the most important factor is it looks different for the consumer running into the AT&T or the Sprint store or Verizon.
And Microsoft could take their slow Xbox approach where they Xbox it up, and then they iterate and they kind of just absorb the market, and they have the ability to buy developers, they have the ability to buy market share, they have the ability to buy placement if they choose to do so.
Well, they can buy their way into any market they want.
And they can do it slowly like a glacier, like a big monkey glacier.
They can, and I don't want to stay on this too long because I can't predict the future. I just would say Windows Phone 8 is a far better shot than Firefox OS or WebOS.
It's worth watching for sure at this point, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay. Do you mind if we do a quick affiliate plug before we go on?
Go for it.
All right. Well, so Jupiter Broadcasting, the excellent audio and video network that many of you are probably at least somewhat aware of, has a very neat system that allows us to be funded directly by our audience. So that way we keep any commercial sponsorships to a minimum. And, if we get a great commercial sponsor who's a great fit for you, we'll definitely talk to them. But the idea here is let's just answer to the people that matter the most, and that's the audience. And there's a couple different ways you can help us with that system. The first one is you can contribute directly, either through PayPal or Amazon. If you listen to a few of our shows a week and you think, you know what, I just always enjoy this, and it's cheaper than a cable subscription and things like that, so something to consider. But An easier method that doesn't really cost you anything up front is our affiliate links. And we have those down at the bottom of our website over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. We have one down there for Amazon US, for UK and DE, and Netflix US, which if you think about getting Netflix for somebody, it's a great holiday gift, for example. Maybe click on our link before you order it for them and give us the credit. And then we also have another for Newegg and ThinkGeek and Best Buy. Audible, which I absolutely love. The best place to get audiobooks. Mint.com, which is free, but they'll still kick us some money if you do it. Code School. People love Code School to listen to this show. If you're not familiar with Git, what's the matter with you? How are you even doing a good job if you're not familiar with Git? Go over to Code School. We've got a free lesson on it. Use our link. Gamefly's down there as well. And then we have Chrome and Firefox extensions. You install those bad boys in your web browser. Auto tags your website. But what's cooler, what's even better about that, in fact, if I go here to the Linux Action Show, I have a link to it. Our extensions, our affiliate extensions, are in a GitHub repo that Rikai set up, the creator of them. And I will put a link to those in the show notes. And if you want to participate in our awesome affiliate extensions that help keep us going, you can do so. Or if you have a feature suggestion, an issue, something like that, you can do it over there on the GitHub page. And one of the new features that will be coming soon to that extension is the ability to override our extension. So if you want to allow some other sites to have affiliate privileges, you can. Like, for example, DuckDuckGo has an affiliate system. So if you want to say, you know what, when I'm shopping from a link on DuckDuckGo, let them take the affiliate. Don't give that to Jupiter Broadcasting. That's a feature Rikai's adding, and you can watch that happen on our GitHub repo, which is a great way to tie it in with this show. So there you go, and a big thank you to everybody who does that. Helps a lot. All right, so what is our next topic? Burnout?
Indeed.
All right, I'm sure you have many things to say about this.
Oh, and I'm sure you do as well.
And you kind of seem like you're going through a little burnout yourself right now. You're talking, whenever I see somebody struggling with equipment issues like you are, where you get a laptop, you return the laptop, that means, something's not working quite right for you. You just want a tool, and a lot of times when people focus on the tool, it's often an outlet for the anxiety they have towards the issues they're having with whatever project they're on. Because I at least that's how I operate. I need that iPad 3 in order to test this. I have to get that.
Yeah, you buy a new toy to make yourself feel a little better.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, and I know we have a lot of students listening, you may not have experienced true burnout in IT yet.
I think it takes a lot longer than people think because, it depends on what kind of burnout, but yeah, it can take years.
This is the first really bad bout of it I've had.
Okay.
Probably because I'm taking more risks than I used to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, more in the line.
Some more skin on the game right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But basically, I don't know, Chris, how would you define burnout?
There's a lot of different levels of burnout. I can tell you, I generally can go through a period where I have, things are going really well with a new client or something like that. And then it starts to feel a little bit like a grind. And that's usually when it starts feeling grindy, the process starts. It doesn't mean you're burnt out at that point, but it starts. As time goes on, everything really starts to become more and more of an issue. And you don't even realize a lot of times you're burned out because in a lot of cases, people start focusing it on something else, like you're doing with the laptop woes and things like that. It's just such a complicated and can be such a wide-ranging affliction? Is that the right term, you think?
Well, I like the World War II term for post-traumatic stress, combat fatigue, for burnout, because it really does feel that way. One of the issues I see, and many of my acquaintances and friends in the industry, tell me if this follows for you, you start predicting what people are going to say before conversations happen.
Oh, yeah.
Like everything becomes routine. Meetings are, how they're going to go, which is fine.
Yeah, but a lot of times you have this sensation, I just don't have the energy for this. I know what they're gonna say.
And it doesn't imply that anything. In fact, I'm not having any trouble with clients. I would say, it's a very strange position to be in. You can get burned out without there being any kind of risk of losing a contract or unemployment.
Sure, you can get burned out just from being bored for too long.
Right. One thing I would say in my case is I've been working on the same platform for longer than I've worked on any other platform.
So you're bored a little bit?
Perhaps.
I get bored. No, I totally get platform bored. Yeah. This is funny coming from the host of Linux Action Show, but I'm a little bored on Linux right now. I've been working on CentOS boxes for about a half a year now, almost, and I don't prefer CentOS. I find it to be a constant battle, so I come into it with this attitude, and it's like, I know you need me to install the PAE kernel, oh god, that's going to be a battle. And then actually turned out to be just fine. But it's like this constant having to work with these tools and work with the software that I don't want to work with, and it's just driving me nuts. And honestly, it's driving me so nuts that there's been times where I'm enjoying the Windows 8 product testing, compatibility testing I'm doing for them, because at least it's not CentOS right now. And I love Linux. I love Linux, but sometimes I just get sick of it.
And I'm seeing in the chat the term combat fatigue is both confusing, slightly insulting, and anti-insulting to people, which is interesting. Yeah, so I would say that's a very extreme way to put it. Fair enough. So if you're insulted, I apologize. I would also tell you that combat fatigue is actually not allowed to be used in the military. It's called post-traumatic stress. You get yelled at for that. So a better term might be, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something. Because the problem is it does start feeling like there's conflicts where there weren't.
Fatigue is almost just a good descriptor.
Fatigue is definitely appropriate. And it does start, problem is you can become combative.
You kind of get a bad
little
attitude.
Things. Like, there are a few geniuses at the Apple Store, I'm sure, who don't want to see me again. So I would say it's an analogy, not a literal term.
I should say, too, as an IT contractor, I can't tell you, I have had so many times where especially with lawyers and doctors, oh my gosh, yeah. They direct their stress to their equipment so often that a lot of times when they call me, they are very, very angry, right? Because they're channeling that, and they are experiencing a symptom of burnout. And I think a big part of it is, for me, is there's a little guilt in there too, because in order to avoid burnout, I need to take more time out of the office. I need to take more time off. And the American culture is such that I start feeling guilty if I'm out and it's on a sunny day and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm not doing something that could be generating revenue. I start feeling a little bad about that. And the more I do it, the worse I feel. And so it ends up like this double-edged sword where burnout is a combination of I'm sick with my work scenario, but I feel guilty if I take time off, so I just kind of get trapped. And the more trapped I get, the more burnt out I get. And the more I feel I'm backed up against a corner and I'm in a situation that I can't get out of and I just have to plow through it, and I don't have the energy to do it, I don't think I can make it through this. Oh, it's such a pain in the butt. That's how burnout feels to me.
Well, one of the issues I'm currently facing is particularly frustrating because the clients are very pleased with the product.
Yeah.
They are not pleased with the very long Apple review times.
Well, I mean, right now it's definitely got to be a bad time with new OS and a new phone.
So they have nowhere to put their frustration. So they obviously call me.
Yeah, the current client that I'm working with is really pushing back on QA testing. They really don't want to do the QA they need to do. And so, and in fact, and so much so that we launched a little early, and there are a few small bugs that I think we would have caught with better QA testing. Small things that you don't think about until they're in production, and we were just, what we were doing is we were opening it up to groups of 100 at a time, and we were getting more and more exposure. And unfortunately, they kind of just got to a point where like, no, we're spending too much time on this, we just have to go, and they just overrode us. And now, after working on something so hard for so long, now you're kind of in this other kind of disaster mode because the client didn't let us go long enough.
And that's another struggle. Nobody wants to tolerate unit testing or anything like that.
Right, and especially when they're not technically literate and they don't understand.
So and there are a lot of ways you can get burnout. And I think going into specifics, I know plenty of Java developers who are just burned out with the very enterprisey structure of getting a simple thing changed.
Oh man, oh boy, yeah.
I mean,
that's why I'm a contractor now. That just
right. I think me and you don't have that, where we can just change things based on
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I worked for 6 years in an environment where and I'm telling you, if I wanted to change the print driver on a print server, I had to submit a change request. We had change management meetings every Thursday at 2 p.m., and I had to sit there at a table of 14 people and justify why I wanted to change a printer driver. And they actually, on occasion, would deny it if enough other changes were approved before me, and they just didn't want to change too much stuff. They would say, no, you can't change the printer driver. You got to wait till next week.
Well, my favorite is I have a number of clients who really like Agile. But they do these stand-up meetings that are supposed to be 5 to 10 minutes long that tend to go 2 to 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And it's very interesting what happens. The developers don't speak. and they're not really spoken to unless there's a problem.
Right.
So the only interaction they have with management or other teams is, well, how come this isn't done yet?
Right. When it's time, here's the task. Or,
Who does speak are the PMs and the designers.
Mhm.
And what tends to come out of those meetings are more change orders on top of whatever else they had scheduled.
Yeah, more scope creep.
So another issue seems to be scope creep definitely leads to burnout.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're an employee, it's terrible. If you're a contractor, it leads to definite conflicts because you can't allow it.
Right. And for me, like, I'll say it's going to cost you X. And then if they start adding more and more stuff to it, I have to keep coming back to them and saying, all right, well, this is going to cost you more. It's going to cost you more. Now, the benefit to that can actually be, in some corporations, that actually will put the brakes on some of that stuff. And that actually can be an interesting way to leverage a contractor is by making them sort of apply breakage to this by adding direct attenuable cost. But sometimes clients are just no.
Well, I've had lead developers bring me in just to be basically a jerk to the manager.
Yeah.
Simply to say, insist on an hourly contract.
Yeah, I had a situation where they wanted to switch a house over to ASP.NET and Microsoft SQL from PHP and MySQL.
That's a couple months.
And the thing was, it was like an exceptional PHP application. I mean, this was, mind you, this is 7 years ago. So this was something that was like dynamic web cart updates and just, menus that were very extremely impressive. And they wanted to switch it just because they didn't see a long-term growth path for PHP and MySQL. This was 7 years ago. Okay. And they wanted to go to ASP, and the company was like, okay, well, we think we can do this. And I was IT at this point. I brought in a contractor to come in and do a reevaluation, and I was able to say, look, with what I've seen and with what they've seen, we want to do it like this. And I was able to get them to not make that change. But these constant battles where it's like, no, I'm just trying to save the house. I don't want to burn the house down. This constantly will burn you out. Where you feel like you're fighting for the better good of the company, you're fighting against it's just this fighting mentality is no good.
Well, another issue, especially in the chat room, they're bringing up Agile. I understand the point of Agile. I have never seen it work or done correctly, because the problem is, so ideally an Agile stand-up meeting is everybody talks for a minute or so. I've never seen that happen. Usually it turns into beat up on the front end developers. Now, if the back end's down, it turns in, all the front end guys get even. I've never seen Agile really work well.
So let's play, from the business end here. Right. What do you do? What is the right approach? Because when you do have a group of people, even if it's a small open source project,
my favorite clients to work with, of the larger ones, are very open about top-down structure. Because it's more efficient. So
there's a dictator and there's a structure.
There's a structure and there's no fake collaboration meetings.
Oh.
Right. So I was once in a meeting where a very high level person comes in and he had, quote, suggestions, but he tried to be very clear that they weren't orders. At the end of the meeting, the PM ordered everybody to implement every single suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is Agile, in my opinion, in a lot of structures, turns into just another form of top-down.
Yeah.
But it adds all these unneeded meetings. And, everybody gives their opinion, which is then just disregarded, as though it would have been in a top-down structure.
And if you have a bad PM, it really falls apart, because it becomes, really what it is it becomes an opportunity for the PM to have a better review next time. And it's just, you become subject to them trying to make themselves look good if you have a bad PM.
And this is a problem you'll face as an employee more than a contractor. Because as a contractor, you always have, that's fine, that's out of scope, we'll have to negotiate another fee.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I don't want to get into the Agile discussion because I know people get very upset. But if anybody has a case where it's working, and especially if you're a front-end developer, I would really like to hear about it.
I'll tell you, Michael, the number one thing, actually, now that I think about it, that leads me to burnout is if I'm just working on something I don't care about, and if, the stakes are really high for the client or for the customer or for the boss, but I really just couldn't give a crap about the outcome. And I don't know if that's a personality flaw with myself, But sometimes, people come to me and I just always, people, whenever they ask for support, they never just say, hey, can you fix this? They always say, I need you to get this fixed. I haven't been able to bill our customers for 2 days and we're way behind on revenue. This has to be fixed right now. That's how it always gets stated, right? And
I tend to have the opposite problem where I seem to be, I go into a project and I'm told by someone high level, we have a do or die ship day. But I seem to be the only person who cares.
Yeah, there's that too. That's horrible. That also leads to burnout. And it's this, I hate the false, everybody get really upset. We really got to be really worried about this when, you know what, just be chill. I'll get it fixed. I'm a pro. This is what I do. You don't have to threaten me.
I think it's very different also from front end to back end, because one thing I face is, I don't get called into a project until it's gone to hell normally. And I'm told by someone fairly high that come in, do this, we have a ship date, get us in that date.
Yeah.
And then I meet the PM and he wants to talk about colors and adding gradients. And I'm just sitting there, you guys are about to go out of business.
Are you seriously bothering me with this right now? Do you have any, oh my gosh, man. Oh my gosh.
How long has this project been going on? 6 months. Okay. We've done 3 redesigns.
I've literally had days where I've gone, and I even tweeted a picture of this, where the virtual infrastructure was literally collapsing. And this is a production environment where we have government contracts, where we have to meet certain SLAs.
Of course.
And I'm keeping the system up in real time. I'm killing processes. I'm nicing other processes. I'm stopping backups. And a user comes up to me and pulls me to her desk and stands me there and says, I'm not getting the notification in my tray when I get new emails in Thunderbird. And it's the owner. It's the owner. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to save your company right now. You want me to fix this?
One of my favorite war stories, if we're sharing, is I went into a project when iOS 5 came out, and their app was on the store and crashing. They would not push an update without doing a complete design overhaul.
Oh, no.
Because, and this I think may be a sign of the market I'm in, where engineering is subservient to design in a lot of ways. And I actually left that project. I said, you have to push this now. And the guy said, well, why? We're willing to pay you. Just do it. I said, I can't put this in my portfolio if it has 21-star reviews. It just can't do it. I said, so I tried to talk them into it. I really, really tried. And what it came down to is the people that were the managers had design backgrounds. And to them, the occasional crash, which was for most users once or twice a day, was okay. But pushing the same design in a 2.0 update was not.
Totally, in my opinion, misbalanced priorities.
But this is a common thing I see in the Apple ecosystem.
Do you think that's because in Apple itself, design leads? Design,
from some of the things that leak out of Apple, engineering works for the designers.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know. I don't know where I read it, but I read somewhere that Johnny Ive practically, reports to no one.
Right. He basically runs the show. And there's no such thing as a technical limitation if they want to design something.
Well, and then that's why.
Yeah.
The MacBook Retina doesn't have an Ethernet port, right? I mean, that just that's crazy to me.
Do you know why? They came out and said why. Because Johnny Ive thought it would make it too thick and it wouldn't look good.
Yeah.
So it's a different culture, and now that I talk about it out loud, that's probably what's burning me out, is working on projects that I won't necessarily list because of silly things. And that's a scenario that's happened more than once.
So so it's sort of like at the end of the day, what's the point? I mean, yeah, I'm making revenue, but what's the point?
Well, the interesting thing is I get a call from like a director of tech or director of development. The guy's in a panic. This thing is crashing on the store. We need to get this out. We want to bring someone outside. We heard you're good. Just get it done, do whatever needs to be done. And the PM fights me all the way. Because, well, can't we just add this in? This would look really good. It's a great experience. And I hear about,
experience.
In a lot of these organizations, the term user experience is like the ace of Trump.
Yeah.
I said, and I've tried to say, crashing is the worst user experience you could ever have.
Right.
Like, we would be better if there were plain text, a terminal emulator, if it didn't crash. Like, it's fine.
You can at least then use it.
Can we just push a quick update now and then work on the redesign?
Yeah.
But no.
Oh, yeah, that'd be so frustrating.
And I will mention that the app in question is no longer on the store and the company's out of business.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but there's been more than one, and it's it's not. And I remember a few weeks ago, I was advocating working collaboratively with designers, but you can't let it destroy your product. You can't. Crashing bugs should come first.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding in a lot of these organizations they don't.
That just seems like a total misalignment of their priorities, and that doesn't seem like a sustainable alignment either.
Well, I think it is sustainable, actually. There was a paper written called "The Age of User Experience," and I don't remember the author's name, but that paper is kind of the guiding light for a lot of these new startups.
And in what? And it suggests that you make it pretty enough that we forgive the crashing?
It suggests that there's no longer any need to worry about technical features, that the way to differentiate yourself is with slick UX and, quote, an exceptional user experience.
Could you give me an example of where you've seen that actually work? I mean, I guess
sure.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to think of, like, I think it's...
Tweetbot is a great example. Tweetbot is overpriced for what it is. But its great user experience makes it a great app.
Huh.
However, Tweetbot does not crash.
I've never used Tweetbot, so I'm not...
It's a very big iOS.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
The problem is, it's like when people do Agile and they misinterpret the point.
Mm-hmm.
The man writing the paper didn't think you should ignore technical problems. The idea is after all the functions and after all the bugs are fixed, then you worry about user experience.
Needs Coffee points out OS 10 for many years, really. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, those first 4 releases of OS 10 or whatever, pretty bad.
I mean, and one thing I'm noticing is now there's this trend with designers that animations and fluff are the new thing. Like everything has to be some kind of OpenGL animation.
I could see some logic to it, though, because I remember that stuff. I'm like thinking back. I remember any app that has a lot of flash, something that really sticks with me. And I think a problem a lot of these guys face is people buy these apps or install these apps, and then they just don't ever really launch it again. I think there's some analytics out there that have shown that. And if you had something that kind of made it register with people, they might use it more.
That's true. I mean, again, I remember a few weeks ago, I was all about designers, and I still think they're very important, and you should have good design. My issue is when you're worrying about that, when you have a crashing bug on the store.
Yeah.
My issue, and this is very frustrating, and this is where I've seen engineering staff who it's very interesting when you watch an engineer and a designer talk in a design-driven organization. It's basically the designer giving orders and the engineer trying to cope with them. And sometimes there's even limitations, like on the platform, that they don't want to know.
I think an interesting modern example of this is Android to some extent. With Ice Cream Sandwich, it got a really nice visual overhaul, and that's been really refined in Jelly Bean. But for the first, all through all the 1 and 2 releases, it was really, you could tell engineers were building this thing.
Well, and so that's the other end of the spectrum, right? If it's totally engineer driven, you're not going to look very good.
Yeah.
You need to be a little more balanced, like Windows Phone 8.
Oh, jeez, wow.
Yeah.
And you can't even buy a Windows Phone 8 at this point, right? Do you know when that HTC one's going to be available?
I don't know, but I want one.
I am actually in the market for a phone. Although I even implied on Twitter that I would consider it, and I got some very angry responses. People were like, "Oh, I'm so disappointed," and I'm like, I don't really see the difference between Windows Phone and Android, except for the company behind them.
Wait. They're not mad. They're disappointed.
Yeah.
That your mom? Did you not turn in your homework?
Well, because I think a lot of people think of Android as this open source platform, but I look at the two and I'm thinking, in practice, there's not a huge difference other than features and apps at this point.
Interesting. The openness of Android is a Pandora's box.
Unless you're somebody that gets yourself like a nice Nexus phone or something that's has really good support in like the Cyanogen community. But you're going outside of what people who are going to say be developing applications for and want to do compatibility testing really should be doing at that point. Or people like me who need to have something kind of close to what my clients have. That way I know how to troubleshoot their phones when I grab them. I mean I don't have to follow that very, very closely, but I need to kind of at least keep an eye on the stock version so that way I know how to use them.
Right.
So it's not a clear. I don't think it's as clear cut as people that tweeted me back and on Google Plus too were like, I can't even believe you're considering it. I'm like, I don't know. I'm looking at the specs from a hardware standpoint, and I'm looking at the platform, and it looks like a pretty good platform with some good technology. And if I look at the policies of applications and OS updates, I don't think it's as clear cut as some people think it is. And I don't mean to keep going back to that, but you brought it up.
Oh no, please continue.
No, I just think it's an interesting response to the Windows 8 birth thing, and I don't know. I know that's far we got away from burnout, but I think maybe do you have any suggestions for how people treat their burnout?
Well, I think it comes down to, why are you burned out? Is it the organization you're in? Is it time to find a new job? Is it external issues? Is it you don't like the technology you're working with? One interesting thing is the guy, Allende Rahim, he's a big shot in the .NET community.
Okay.
He's a contractor, and he will simply walk away from any, and he has this in his contracts. He will walk away if you make a technical decision he doesn't like.
Now you gotta be pretty comfy. And
well, he's a celebrity. He's like, he can do what he wants.
Yeah, exactly. God, wouldn't that be just the dream?
Yeah, he just gets up and leaves. If you don't do what he tells you, he's done. Like,
if I pick up like a couple of sponsors, or we had like say 5% of the audience donate, that's how I'd roll. Because then I would only need to work like whatever clients that I wanted to, and then I would just roll in there and be like, yeah, I'm out of here. That I'd be like a baller like that. If for however long that lasted.
Probably not a great solution for most people.
Right. Yeah. Kind of gonna get yourself a bad rep with that. You want that word of mouth.
Although oddly enough, he has a very good rep because of that.
That is a thing, right? Well, yeah. That means he is attractive to the clients that want that level, caliber of person. You see, there is the uncomfortable truth is there's a very healthy market for people who won't put up a fuss like that.
Well, he actually has been on This Developer's Life, another great podcast, and Rob Connery, the host, asked him, well, why do people hire you since you're such a jerk? Like, right out. He said, it's simple. The lead developer hires me to yell at his manager and to force him to do things the developer's telling him for 6 months to do.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's very simple. I come in, I do what I'm doing. If you don't like it, I leave.
Good for him.
He's an interesting guy. He also reviews open source code and tears the authors down. Not too nice, but...
So if you have that as an option, that seems like the obvious solution, but then you probably wouldn't be suffering from too much burnout if you have that flexibility in the first place.
But honestly, Chris, I think you've experienced this as well. As a contractor, often the client knows what needs to be done. They just need someone outside the family to say it to management.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone into meetings where I give my presentation and all the engineers are like nodding, and a couple glances to each other.
What's interesting is a lot of my clients, I work there long enough where I lose that. And that's when I know as a contractor...
that's a problem.
I start to lose effectiveness because I'm no longer an outside voice. And you have so much power as that outside, like, impartial voice because people really listen to that. But even after about 6 months or so, I notice that kind of starts to fade. I can still, I am very good at just sizing things up and telling people exactly how it is, but nicely. And that can remain very effective. But after about a year or so, it really starts to lose its impact, and it starts. It definitely, the 6 month line is definitely a dangerous place to be at. Yep. Because especially if you've been to the office and people start thinking you actually work there. Yeah. See, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm.
So that gets really risky because then they want to tell you office gossip, and
It also means you get a lot of free food. So
yeah, they fed me every day. That was good.
Yeah.
But
it's trade-off.
You lose something, but then you gain something more because perhaps the engineers are more open to you.
That's true too, and you do learn what the business needs really are very well.
Yeah, somebody will tell you the truth rather than the PowerPoint.
And you understand, like, it's funny, like how some things when you come in seem like, why the hell would you ever do it like that? And then after you've been there for a while, you're like, oh, okay, I see how they came to that conclusion. And
so actually, I tend to have the opposite tact. I get a lot of calls from people who've just fired someone.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And they say so-and-so was an idiot. I said, well, I'm sure he had a reason.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't follow. It's usually, well, the reason was you.
Yeah, that's so often true.
Then I go in the source code and I start reading the commits. It's like, because X person demanded this. It's like, oh, here we go.
You know, this is an interesting thing that I do. Is I keep good notes like that.
Yeah.
And that's what I use for my itemized billing are my actual work notes. But then they're also like, you know, I have this one user who is the most mentioned user in my notes, and I can literally say now, if I have to, you know, if it becomes an issue where they're like, why are you charging me? I can say, look, user X has requested this X amount of times, and this has just cost you this much, and this is just the reality. And here's the notes to prove it. That kind of stuff helps combat the situations that would lead to burnout. You know, because if I didn't have that documentation...
Oh, you definitely need to do things in writing and keep notes. I do everything. Even if I have a phone call, I send you an email summarizing.
It really does help. It helps prevent burnout. It does. But I love your line entry in here for gaming. Yes.
Yeah, so gaming, but I like shooters, but I don't find them relaxing. So I tend to do things like the Humble Indie Bundle, Fez, Braid, anything kind of indie and a little weird.
I am so totally in your camp. This is why I just bought the last bundle 6. First of all, it's a very good bundle. And Torchlight. Torchlight's a great game for that. Dust Force, all of them are really good. I also just got FTL, Faster Than Light. It's really hard, but it's like a space command game.
Yeah, I'm currently playing Super Meat Boy, which is incredibly hard.
So gaming is a good way. You know what the key is to gaming to unwind from burnout is it needs to be a game you can have some solid wins at, because you get a feeling of accomplishment from that, and that helps turn around from the burnout. And so that means even if it needs to be stupid touch games, you know, you need to win.
Yeah, I mean one of the games I'm playing is Super Meat Boy, and then also Spelunky. Those are like retro style games. Yeah,
see, that's why this is one of the reasons I haven't been playing Star Wars: The Old Republic, because I'm at a point now where it's really become a challenge, and there's a time and place where I want a good challenge and I want to unlock the next achievements and I really want to, you know, progress. And then there's times where I just want some solid, quick, easy wins, and so that's why I'm doing the Humble Bundle right now. So that's a great tip. Great stress relief. Just apply it correctly for you.
Yeah, I would definitely think the problem is if you're a PC gamer, though, you have to turn off your email notifications. You have to turn off your what is it, Google Chat pop-up thing? What do they call that on Windows?
Turn it all off. Just turn it all off.
No, but they have a name for it, don't they? The pop-up?
The notifier?
Yeah.
Yeah. You could also just do a gaming account that doesn't have any of that stuff installed. That's what I do.
Oh, you could do that. I didn't think of that.
Now, this one, you know, I would say bring a podcast with you and get away from the computer. Or maybe don't bring the podcast.
So actually, this weekend I did non-technical podcasts.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
I was listening to gaming podcasts. I spent a lot of time on my Kindle.
Mm-hmm.
I just got away from the tech.
This is what I use Audible for. And it's not just a plug. I know they're an affiliate, but honestly, I get great Audible books, and then I just, even if it's like late at night, I'll lay out on the couch and listen to it, have the lights off so it's just relaxing. You know, I'm not getting something blasted into my eyeballs, and it's nice.
Because you know what happens over time, if you're doing a side project and you're enjoying it, but say client work is getting rough,
mm-hmm.
you don't want that feeling to bleed into your side project. So it's best just to take some time, get away from the computer. If you have family, go see your family.
Mm-hmm.
Just do something else.
Even if you have to force yourself to do it a little bit, because just getting your mind in a different gear, sometimes it's funny, some of the truths about the situation that are burning you out will sort of just bubble up to the top when you're not in the space that you're normally at.
Also, if it's a technical issue, if you take about an hour to relax, the answer may just come to you rather than banging your head against the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least that's been my experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like, if you're not actively thinking about it and your right brain or whatever isn't chewing on it, then it just kind of, the truth is there. It just is, it's in the fog. So, yeah. It just, that really depends on the person and what they're capable of doing, but get away from the machine, get away from the problem.
Yeah. Just walk away. It's really not worth the strain.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Any other things?
All right. No, I think that's it. I'd be interested in anybody's feedback, because I have a feeling this is a very common issue, even for the non-developers in chat, I should say in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're a sysadmin, you've mentioned it. I'm sure even designers go through it. I have a feeling PMs go through it often.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be very interested to hear.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from a PM perspective, actually. I would really like to hear it from a PM perspective. So email us, folks, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Or you can leave a comment. But the email is sort of the best way to get in. And there's also the contact form at the top of jupiterbroadcasting.com.
.gov.
So we've got a we've got a tool this week that's an interesting fit for this week's episode.
We do. So the tool is the Amazon Kindle e-reader.
Now, you laugh, but do you own one? Do you own an Amazon Kindle?
I own the second gen, the last white one they made.
Yeah, that's the one I have too.
I also pre-ordered the, what is it called? The paper white, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that looks really sweet. It's nice. I'm curious to hear how that is on the eyes, because the thing I love about the Kindle right now is it's not an active screen. And that for just like relaxing the brain, relaxing the eyes, and helping you fall asleep, I don't think it should be overlooked. I think it's an important element of it. So I'm curious now to know it's got this paper white, bright aspect to it. They say they spent 5 years designing that backlight so it would be specifically, have this paper feel to it and not be too bright and not have that blasting in your eyes sensation. So let us know. But yeah, Kindle Paperwhite. We'll have a link to this in the show notes. Kindles we get extra affiliate revenue from. So if you buy this, we get more than just the standard. And I think maybe possibly we even make revenue off your future book purchases. So if you make them from the device, I think. I don't know if that's true. But either way, it's a great deal for Jupiter Broadcasting if you want to pick one of these.
See, I did not know that. This weekend I powered through 2 Dresden File novels. Nice. So I've been reading a lot.
At 120, it's a little expensive for a holiday gift, but if you had if it's for your if it's for like a mom or dad or a significant other, I think it's right in the sweet spot.
Well, there's also a cheaper version you can get for $69.
Yeah.
I think it's what is the difference? It's not front lit.
Yeah, it's not the Paperwhite. It's exactly the same. It's the older version that you and I have with some cosmetic changes. Like they made the buttons way nicer, and it's $69. It's less than 6 ounces, and it's got a faster processor in it. So it's a little bit nicer of a Kindle than one you have, but it's that same type of display.
Well, I can't stress enough how much reading, getting away from like an iPad or anything with notifications really does help.
Yeah, that's what I love about the Kindle. Actually, is that you can't multitask necessarily. You can't go launch another app, and that when you're on a tablet, that temptation is always there. And we'll have the link to the Paperwhite one in the show notes. But if you click that and then buy one of the cheaper ones, we still get credit for that too. So there you go, folks. Very nice.
I have something special this week.
Okay.
The audiobook of this week. Because I also listened to a book on Audible.
I didn't know you were not. Did I know you were an Audible listener?
I think I recommended a book in the 3rd episode, but I am a very heavy. I get the gold plan, the 2 credits a month.
That's what I do too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I loves that one. So, wait, your link didn't work for me though. Why Video Games Matter? That was the title, right?
Yes, it's called Extra Lives: Why Video Games Matter. And this guy has a very similar background to me. Actually, he graduated college with a degree in some form of literature. I don't remember what kind, but it's not really relevant. And he backed into. He's a professional writer, but he's been covering tech a little bit. He's an avid gamer, and he's trying to apply literary criticism to video games.
Do you want me to play a sample?
If you can. I didn't know that was legal.
And, at times, starkly personal. Moreover, its focus falls heavily upon console games, as opposed to personal computer games, released in the last few years, most of which are amply budgeted story or narrative games, which may displease some readers. From this, no one should assume that I am not fond of older games, or that I do not play sports games, rhythm games, strategy games, puzzlers, or the like. I am and I do, and moreover will take on any comers willing to
what I like about this one
level drumming and rock band.
Is that it's written and narrated by the same guy. So you get to hear everything as he meant to say it, everything in his voice. And when you're reading a book like that, there's really something to that when you hear it in the author's actual words. That's really cool.
Yeah, and what's interesting is towards the end he goes, and I'm not going to spoil, but he goes into a bit of his personal, I would almost say struggle with some form of gaming addiction.
Oh, really?
And it's his voice does kind of change. It's I do prefer when the authors narrate their own books, to be honest.
Yeah. And the other great thing about it is any name pronunciations, are actually dead on, which is really actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
So we'll put a link to that in the show notes, and if you purchase that, guess what? Supports the show, and actually we make a little decent change if you sign up for an Audible account. And by the way, if you sign up for an Audible account to get that book, you get it for free. You'll get your first book for free, and you can cancel after 30 days. You get to keep the book if you want.
I did not know that because I listen to about 2 Audible books a week. I also finished We Are Anonymous.
Oh, really?
Yes, very interesting.
I burn through Audible books at some rates so much that I have to buy more credits.
I had to do that last month.
Yeah, but for the most part, I try to limit myself to $2 a month. But it's so convenient because you can multitask when you're listening. But for those people who like a good old paper book, you got to pick for them too, don't you?
I do. So, I guess I spoiled it before, but the first book in the Dresden Files is called Stormfront. If you haven't read it, Dresden Files is kind of a film noir, I'd say Sam Spade-style detective story.
Oh, cool.
With a touch of the supernatural. And when I say a touch, I mean a generous helping.
So this is another thing they're doing really cool, is this has whisper sync for voice, so it'll sync up with the Audible version. So you can, I'm doing this. This is my next book, because I'm going to get both, because I get the credits. So I'll get the Audible version. Oh, man, I can't wait to try out the whisper sync stuff.
I haven't tried it. I just see, it's weird. The fiction I read on the Kindle. The nonfiction I listen to like a podcast.
This is really cool. So it's called Stormfront, the Dresden Files, Book 1, and we have the Kindle edition. We'll have it linked in the show notes. $9.99 to get you started. $150 for the hardcover.
Yeah, this guy is very popular. He has a couple very long sci-fi series. Oh, I don't remember the names, but he's a very popular author.
I wonder if this whisper sync with the audiobook works on the non-new Kindles, because it says here that you can add the professional narration of the Stormfront for just $5 after you buy the book.
I don't know.
So I'm so going to try that if you can do that on non-Kindle devices. And
for the curious, the author's name is Jim Butcher. There we go.
There you go. So that looks like I actually been really, really wanting to get into that noir style type of world. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, man. Very cool. I think that's our whole show, yeah?
That's it for me. I'm burned out on podcasting.
At least for another week, right?
Another week.
There you go. Well, folks, Coda Radio comes out on Monday afternoons over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Of course, we are on the west coast of the United States, so that's afternoon by my definition. I don't know what time it is where you're at. But we're live at jblive.tv on Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern, over at jblive.tv. And Mr. Dominic, where should people follow you throughout the week?
Come find me on Google+, Twitter, or if you're daring, app.net.
Oh, there you go. That's right. App.net actually still exists. Well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/ChrisLAS. Tell me how wrong I was this episode. Or you can email the show, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com, or use that contact form at the top of the website. Thanks to everyone who uses our affiliates to support the network. And Coda Radio will be right back here next week.